A wooden box sits on a quiet office desk. No return address. No fingerprints. When the lid is inside, then the silence shatters. In the aftermath, investigators would say the package was built with a craftsman's patience. For nearly 2 decades, someone like that had been sending messages through the mail. Messages wrapped in violence. Long before the nation learned a name, there was only a pattern. It began in the late 19th century. The targets did not seem random. They were engineers, computer scientists, executives, people tied to progress, to machines. Each device arrived disguised as something ordinary. Each one bore a meticulous signature hidden within its construction. Handmade components, reclaimed materials, a deliberate rejection of mass production. It was as if the bombs themselves were arguments. The victims were not symbols to their families. They were people with routines, small habits, unfinished conversations. A young father who promised to be home for dinner. A researcher who loved the quiet of laboratories at dawn. A marketing executive who saved handwritten notes from his children in his briefcase. When investigators visited their homes, they found calendars with future plans still marked in ink. The attacks did not just injure bodies. They invaded the idea of safety. Mail, once mundane, became suspect. A package could now carry intention. As the years passed, the perpetrator's psychology began to emerge through fragments. The devices showed intelligence without formal convenience. No factory parts, no easy shortcuts. Every piece looked chosen rather than purchased. There was an obsessive neatness in the wiring, a patience that suggested isolation. The person behind them appeared to be communicating, but in a language made of fear. In 1979, an airline flight from Chicago experienced a device that failed to detonate properly. Federal agencies began to coordinate, realizing they were facing not separate crimes, but a sustained campaign. A task force formed, studying fragments like archaeologists, studying ruins. The media gave the unknown figure a nickname drawn from early targets, a shorthand that read due to complex mind into a single haunting label. Someone was building messages meant to wound. Years turned into a grim rhythm. Then more packages. Investigators noticed something else: evolution. The devices grew more sophisticated, more deliberate. The builder was learning, adapting, refining. He was not reckless. What investigators could not find in fingerprints or witnesses began to surface in language. In 1995, it was a manifesto, sprawling argument against industrial society and technological dependence. The author demanded publication. Editors faced a moral dilemma: amplify the voice behind terror or risk continued attacks. Ultimately, the text was printed. Readers encountered a mind that saw modern life as a cage. The writing was coldly logical, sometimes clinical, but threaded with fury. He described technology not as a tool, but as an unstoppable force reshaping behavior. Behavior. To him, each device was not chaos. It was a statement. For the task force, the manifesto was both revelation and riddle. Linguists studied phrasing, cadence, word choice. Then came a quiet turning point. One of those moments that never makes noise at first. A man reading the published text felt an uneasy recognition. Certain phrases, certain arguments felt familiar in a way that was deeply personal. They echoed letters he had received years earlier. The tip reached investigators, and for the first time, suspicion focused on a single individual, a reclusive figure, living in a small cabin in the wilderness of Montana. He had once been a prodigy, a mathematician of remarkable promise. His academic career began young, marked by brilliance and discomfort with social structures. Over time, he withdrew from institutions, from cities, from the very systems he believed were deforming human existence. Agents approached the cabin carefully. The structure was simple, almost austere. Inside, they found evidence of a life stripped to essentials: tools, notebooks, and fragments of metal and wood. Investigators compared writings, construction methods, materials. The patterns aligned, the language aligned. The arrest in 1996 felt surreal. After nearly 2 decades of mystery, the figure behind the campaign was no longer an abstraction. He was a person, soft-spoken, controlled, unwavering in his beliefs. During questioning, he did not present himself as a monster. He presented himself as a thinker at war with a system. That self-perception did not erase the suffering tied to his actions. The investigation that followed revealed a life defined by tension between brilliance and alienation. Early achievements had set him apart. Over years of solitude, ideas hardened into certainty. The cabin became both refuge and laboratory. For the victims and their families, The arrest did not erase absence. It did not restore ordinary days. But it did replace uncertainty with knowledge. During trial proceedings, the figure at the center of the case maintained his ideological stance. He did not portray himself as impulsive. The devices, the manifesto, the isolation, they were chapters of the same argument. These questions did not belong only to investigators or courts. They lingered in classrooms, in offices, in... The legacy of the investigation is not simply the capture of a perpetrator. It is the understanding that ideas stirs, that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary meaning when shaped by belief. In the end, what remains most haunting is not just the damage inflicted, but the silence that preceded each act. The investigation unraveled a mystery that had seemed almost mythic. Yet, the truth was human in a way that offered no comfort. And somewhere, in evidence lockers and archived files, the remnants of those devices remain. Mutiles, they no longer threaten, but they continue to testify about isolation, about the wooden box, a symbol of a worldview that rejected the world itself, the hesitancy before an ordinary envelope, a new ritual of suspicion. Every piece, a testament to a craftsman's patience and belief. Future plans, once marked with certainty, now carry a shadow of doubt. Is isolation a reinforcing loop where conviction grew louder?